So you're looking to understand the connection between adrenal health and stress. Well, in this video, I'm going to share with you the 5 things I have learned in my over 20 years as a Catholic naturopath. Coming up, and at the end, I'm going to share with you the stages of healing and how they affect your adrenals, and you definitely want to know what stage you're in. Hello friends, I hope you're having a fabulous day. Carolyn Berghuis here, inspirational Catholic speaker, author of Understanding the Jesus Code, creator of the Live Method, and I'm here to help you learn how to live your life healthy, happy, and holy with weekly online videos. In this channel, I share wellness tips and spiritual guidance designed to help you live your life fully alive. If you're new to my channel, then welcome. I'm really glad you're here. And if at any point during this video you like the content and you're enjoying it and you think, hey, this lady's kind of okay, then click on that subscribe button below. And also at any point during the video, feel free to check out the links below. I have a lot of great information, including my adrenal fatigue questionnaire and a handout titled From Fatigue to Fabulous with Jesus Christ, where I share a lot of my wellness tips, my favorite remedies designed to support your adrenals and optimal energy. And if you have any thoughts or ideas or comments, feel free to leave those in the comment section below, because that's where a lot of our great conversation happens. So this video is a portion of a talk I gave at a local church on how to have a healthy life and more energy, and we're going to talk about adrenal health in this segment. So let's just get started. So our adrenals, does anyone know where their adrenals are? Yeah, wow. Right on top of our kidneys. So sometimes we get afraid when we don't know where our body parts are. So I think it's really important to understand that. And our adrenals, they are our stress handling glands, and they do a lot of good things for us, and we need to support them. So I will share with you my disclaimer. And I'm not a medical doctor. I don't diagnose. I don't treat. And here, the information here, it's just that. It's information for you to enjoy and to bring into your life. Hopefully, you'll have some really nice tips that you can take home and implement them so you can have more energy and enjoy more life, because through it all, we're the foot soldiers on the ground, right? Amen? We have work to do. All right, so right here I have Endocrine Emma. I don't have Endocrine Ed, but we have Emma here today. So I think it's important to understand how our body works. So in the center of our brain, we have our hypothalamus, our pituitary, and our pineal gland. And our hypothalamus is the part of our body that is kind of, I think of your CFO, the Chief Financial Officer, maybe in your church, maybe in your family. The CFO takes measurement of all the assets. And so what your hypothalamus does is it's aware of the levels of your hormones in your body at any given time. And then it gives the report to your pituitary. So think of the pituitary as your CEO. That one's the boss. And so the boss, whoever leads the big time decisions. And so then your pituitary takes that data from your hypothalamus, and it will tell your other glands what to do and when to do it, and it tells them by way of sending hormones. So the hypothalamus is also part, so this is the endocrine system, but the endocrine system is the system that makes your hormones. And your hypothalamus is also part of your limbic system. Now your limbic system is your emotional system. So every time we take an emotional hit, and this starts in utero before we're born, because if mom is having a hard time, the baby's feeling it. I mean, you can be just next, as an adult, you can be next to someone and you know kind of how they're feeling. So can you imagine your experience with your mom? So every time there's an emotional hit that comes, the hypothalamus is affected. And so with long-term stress, especially decades of stress, the hypothalamus sometimes has a difficult time in communicating with your pituitary. So then here's your pituitary, your CEO, right, calling the shots, but it won't have appropriate information to actually do its job. So one of the things that I think is really important and critical and foundational in our healing is we have to know the divine healer. We have to know our divine physician. And in the 20 years, the nearly 20 years that I've been doing my work, one observation just jumps out at me. And that's Christians fare better when we do diet changes, when we do the emotional work, because when you're praising him, you're deepening your relationship with him. When you're in the Word, you're deepening your relationship with him. And when we have that foundational relationship with Christ, even if it's little, he doesn't need much, right? Thank goodness. So he doesn't need much. He just needs a little bit. And when we continue to go to him, that stress response will dampen down because he's the source of healing. So here we have our hypothalamus, your pituitary, and then your adrenal glands are in this picture. So our adrenal glands on the top of our kidneys and our back, they will make our stress hormones, and they also make our vitality hormones. So like cortisol, epinephrine, norepinephrine, these stress hormones, when you're under stress, your pituitary is going to tell your adrenal glands, hey, watch out, there's a tiger around the corner and you need to run. And so we move into fight or flight. So our body will move into fight or flight during periods of stress, and it's a survival mechanism, right? And then during periods of greater rest, which you'll move into this also during prayer, during meditation, when we're at peace, our body will move into what we call as the parasympathetic nervous system. We have sympathetic, fight or flight, and parasympathetic. So when we're over here in the parasympathetic, the body will regenerate, it will heal itself. And so the stress hormones won't be produced. It will be your vitality hormones, your progesterone, your estrogens, testosterones, DHEA, pregnenolone. So we're going to look at here kind of how that works. So we know the pituitary is sending hormones out, and we know the adrenal glands are sending hormones out. And in this next slide, we're going to see so envision this top little circle up here. That's the adrenal, it's a cell in your adrenal glands, and it's releasing, let's say it's releasing progesterone. Progesterone acts like natural Valium. It's very calming in the body. Now, in a woman who's cycling, the ovaries are going to release more progesterone, and in a postmenopausal woman or in a man, the adrenals will release more of that. And so the adrenal gland will release the hormones, and then you have a cell that would really like some of that progesterone, and men produce it too. So it could be a cell a muscle cell that needs to relax. It could be a cell in the uterine lining that needs to relax because it needs to kind of mature and get ready for a period or get ready for a baby. So those cells will receive that progesterone. It's kind of like a lock and key mechanism. There are certain spots on the cells that the progesterone can enter into. And so in a nutshell, that's the communication system in the endocrine system. So now where do our hormones come from? So our body has to make them. Well, we need a lot of vitamins and minerals and things like that. However, we have one main building block, and it may surprise you, because this substance has been deemed as kind of bad and evil, and it's actually something we really need, and our body makes about 80% of it, and if we have more in our diet, our body will make less. If we have less in our diet, our body will make more, and that is cholesterol. So we have to have enough cholesterol to make our hormones. So here we have cholesterol, and your body from there will kind of take a molecule off that structure. It will make pregnenolone, and from pregnenolone, aldosterone, that's more of a kidney hormone, so I didn't go down that pathway. It balances water. But we have different pathways here. We can either make the progesterone, from pregnenolone, make progesterone or DHEA. And however, if we're under stress, cortisol is a stress hormone. Did anyone know that? When we're stressed, we're releasing cortisol. But cortisol also is the hormone that wakes us up in the morning. So it needs to be higher in the morning and then dip down as the day progresses. So if we're under stress, we call it the pregnenolone steal. During stress, the body says, hey, I need that pregnenolone to make the progesterone to make my stress hormones. And so what hormones can you not make? Your vitality hormones, the hormones that make us feel good. So if we're experiencing a lot of stress and we're experiencing kind of chronic stress, The body's going to be very challenged at making the hormones that we want it to make so we can feel good, so we can enjoy the day, so we can enjoy our friendships, so we can enjoy our spouses and our family. So let's say that it's the middle of the afternoon, before that 3 o'clock time where we get tired. So let's say 1 or 2 o'clock. We're still awake. And we are remembering a conversation we had with our spouse in the morning that maybe didn't go so well. And then it's like, oh gosh, he or she, I can't believe they did that. That just really, they should know better. They know I don't like that. I've told them a million times, I don't like that. And it frustrates me, and I'm angry, and I'm upset. So what's happening in your body? You're not in the conversation anymore. That was in the morning. In your body, you're creating cortisol, and you're creating the stress hormones. So we will move into that fight or flight even when we're thinking about it. And then the word, we're supposed to watch our thoughts and our words, you know. As a man thinketh, there he goes. So we want to be mindful. So when we catch ourselves, and it's okay, we all do it. We have our subconscious mind, and about 80% of our thoughts come up, they well up from our subconscious mind. So it just happens. The key is kind of reprogramming that subconscious mind with goodness, and that's where, in the Word, and taking the time to, you know, tell someone we love them, and moving into forgiveness, whatever it takes, so our subconscious mind gets a new message. In that subconscious mind, it's been growing your whole entire life. And those that have had more trauma in their childhood, they've got some subconscious files that are not necessarily congruent with the happiness, so they have a little more work to do. And that could be the person that was in this bubble, the sphere. Remember the sphere? This one hurt? Well, we don't know the wounds that they carry, right? We don't know the wounds that we carry, let alone the wounds that another carries. But we do know that the power of God's grace has the power to heal anything inside of us that could limit us from being the foot soldier that God's saying, hey, you're really good at loving, you're really good at kindness, you're really good at acts of service, whatever your gifts are. And my child over here, they need a little of that love from you. So can you do it? Can you do it? We're all part of the body. So if we are constantly having or allowing the stressful thoughts to enter into our to well up from our subconscious, and we're moving into fight or flight. So if we've got stress hormones running through our body, can we be kind? Maybe, I don't know. I can't. I have to be in that space of that kindness. And so I think recognizing it is really important. All right, does that kind of make sense? Yeah. So cholesterol isn't bad. The ratios can be bad. We can have too much of one or the other, but sometimes if I'm working with a patient, I'm going to dive down into that and take a look. Cholesterol in itself inherently is not bad. So we're going to look at kind of a little more on adrenal fatigue and adrenal, like what the adrenals do and the adrenal hormones. And so this is a list of the adrenal hormones: cortisol, which we're familiar with, aldosterone, progesterone, DHEA, epinephrine, which is also called adrenaline, norepinephrine, and mineral corticoids. So does anyone crave salt? Anyone like a salt fiend? Oh my gosh. Do I crave salt, honey? So if you crave salt, your adrenals need to make your mineral corticoids, and they need salt. So what's happened is we have mined salt, and we've taken the minerals out of it that are in it in nature as God created salt. So does anyone like to go to the beach? Like just, right? Oh my gosh, what is that? And I don't know about, my husband and I, we grew up in West Michigan. So that wasn't salt water, wasn't seawater, it was real pretty water. And there's something about the seawater, and it's not even part of our upbringing. So I don't know about the rest of you here, but I'm going to guess most of you probably didn't grow up in a sea area, but yet we go there. So because see, that seawater is loaded with all the minerals that our bodies love, and the air is kind of charged with that. So I always recommend a really good salt, a nice Himalayan salt. One of my favorites, my favorite salt is it's a Celtic gray sea salt.
And Kroger carries it. They didn't use. I've seen it at Meijer. Certainly, your health food stores carry it. So the thing with those salts, they're balanced, and they didn't add aluminum to it. So sometimes they'll stick a little bit, but that's what salt does. The traditional salt that we'll see, they strip the minerals out and they'll add some aluminum so it shakes nice. So use your salt. And the Celtic Sea Salt, the gray variety, it tastes so good. It's salt, but it's like it's hard to describe it until you taste it. It's beautiful. It's just got a beautiful taste. So, in epinephrine and norepinephrine, those are hormones that your adrenal will release during periods of stress, whereas epinephrine, adrenaline is more of it's going to affect your heart because you're going into fight or flight. So what happens in fight or flight? Your energy is being dispersed to your large muscle groups, your cardiovascular system, and then we have norepinephrine, which is going to have an effect on your circulatory system. So those are some of the adrenal hormones that kind of keep in mind. They're busy little glands. So we're going to take a look at kind of cortisol and adrenal health and see what's cortisol and thyroid hormones and what goes on there and how that affects the adrenals. Because your thyroid and your adrenals, they run your motor together. So if you have heightened cortisol is going to block thyroid hormone from getting into the cells. So sometimes we think we have a thyroid problem where really it's not so much a thyroid problem, which we're going to look at the thyroid problem in our talk on the thyroid. It's not as much of a thyroid problem as an adrenal problem because we're stressed. And we haven't found ways to manage that. Or if we go to worry, like how many of us worry a lot? And women tend to worry more. Is that true? Men here? So, and why is that? Well, men and women are different. And with worry, it's like we're like looking into the future and worrying about something that may or may not happen. So then we're not fully present here. But the gift of worry is that most of the time it's the women who are around the real little children. And we have to be aware that they could do something that they could hurt themselves. And so there's a gift that God gave us, that ability to be aware and kind of have that foresight to protect the children. And so men, they tend to have more anger because if the family's under attack, do they need to worry about that? No, they need to protect their family. And so when we can give ourselves a break, it's like, oh my gosh, I worry about this, I worry about that. It's like, oh, okay, wait a minute. I'm a woman, I live in a woman's body. Okay, Lord, what is really going on here? I'm going to spend some time with you working on that. And the same thing for a man. And then we can kind of cut each other as the sexes a little bit of slack because we're different. And so if we're experiencing a lot of stress or worry, our cortisol is going to be released, and then the cortisol will get into the cell, tell the cell to go, right? And so then the body says, well, we can't. The thyroid hormone, that also gets in and tells the cell to wake up. So the cells can only handle so much instruction. I mean, how many bosses do we need, right? So what we have to do, what the cell has to do, is have a protective mechanism in place to protect itself from too many instructions. And that's basically what's going on there. So the thyroid hormone then can't get in, but see, the thyroid hormone has a longer shelf life in the cell. It will tell the cell to produce energy, the mitochondria, to produce energy for a longer period of time. Versus the stress hormones, they're in and they're out because we're supposed to wake up with the stress hormones and then take action, which means we have to outrun the bear. Unfortunately, or fortunately, we're not outrunning the bear anymore, and most of us aren't engaging in exercise. So then what happens when we're in that fight or flight mode and the body is releasing those stress hormones, we don't burn them off. They stay inside the body, and they're inflammatory. Matter of fact, epinephrine, norepinephrine, they have an affinity for joint fluid. So because the body says, I can't leave that in the blood supply. That's kind of dangerous stuff. So I'll just move it over here in this other fluid. And all of a sudden our knees hurt and our joints hurt. And we don't even really know why. We think it's arthritis. I'm getting old. Where it's very possible that there's a connection here. So, continuing our talk on adrenal health, we're going to look at kind of some contributors to adrenal fatigue. So, the top of the list there is being a perfectionist. You know, I'm not really a perfectionist. I guess I've been blessed in that area, although I do put a lot of pressure on myself. But for those individuals who want everything to be perfect, and it's a natural response for a lot of people, they are so hard on themselves internally because their inner voice is it's got to be perfect, and I've got to make it perfect. So there's kind of a constant state of stress if you believe in something that is really unattainable, because the world. What's the definition of perfection in the world? Well, pick the flavor. There's all kinds of things that the world demands of us. And so there won't ever be an end in sight. So if we want everything to be perfect, there's a constant level of stress. Of course, poor diet is very stressful on the body. We don't think about that. A lot of the foods, and we're going to talk more about foods in our talk on healthy lifestyle and the digestive talk. A lot of our foods, they create inflammation in the body. A lot of the foods have chemicals and toxins. So does anyone notice this up here? This little Happy Meal? Not so happy. You can come and take a look at it later if you like. It's going to be 7 years old in December. Happy birthday. So the thing with this Happy Meal is it didn't mold. It didn't break down. And we're going to talk about it a little bit on and off today. And so it was just chemicals in here and something that resembled food, but it didn't give the body life. So the body then had to clean that up. It's like if you have a big mess in your house, all of a sudden the kids and the dogs and the cats and the horses and the goats and everyone came in and made a mess. And you just everything was nice and clean. And now all of a sudden you've got to go back to the drawing board and clean that up, but you're a little tired because you just spent the whole morning cleaning the house. And now you're back at square one. So it taxes the body. So diet is extremely important. And like I said, we're going to take a look at that later. But you can, poor sleep. Poor sleep is also a big issue. We talked about cortisol in the morning. It needs to be higher. And then it naturally diminishes throughout the day. And as it lowers in the evening, your melatonin should increase. Because they're opposite. They're kind of like a teeter-totter. So as your cortisol lowers in the evening, your melatonin starts to kick in, and then you can sleep. So what happens if you're under a lot of chronic stress? You're kicking off cortisol, and your body's like, I don't even know when to release melatonin anymore. Now, our body will start to release it when it gets dark outside. In humanity, we've been around for 200,000 years. And the human body, we would go to sleep when it was dark, and we get up when it was light. Although now, what are we doing when it gets dark? We're on our devices. And that light is just making a beeline. Your pituitary gland is like, oh, wow. The pituitary gland measures your light. It's like, is it daylight? It's daylight. Oh, it's time to make cortisol. And cortisol and melatonin are opposites. So my recommendation is for healthy sleep hygiene, is to let the house get a little dark in the evening. And the devices, we don't want to do that. Matter of fact, about the last 10 minutes before you fall asleep, this is like the best time of the day to reprogram your subconscious mind. Because those last 10 minutes, whatever you've read, like the Word is great right here, or some spiritual books or prayer, whatever you've exposed your conscious mind to, your subconscious is going to sit with that as you sleep. So your subconscious is healing itself when it sleeps, and all you did is you took 10 minutes and you did some good things. You took care of yourself. And so, and it will actually help with your sleep, because then the body will start to release the melatonin. All right, so anyone see themselves in that list there anywhere? Look a little familiar? Yeah. All right, so we're going to move ahead here. So here's some healthy lifestyle tips. I have appropriate exercise. So what's that appropriate exercise? Like, do I need to do the mini every year, or an Ironman, or some of this crazy stuff? And when we talk in the last talk about blood type diet, we know that with the different blood types, we do better with different types of exercise. I'm a blood type A. Blood type A's do better with more of a kind of like a mind-body exercise where we can kind of focus and some meditative. I personally like Pure Barre. I don't know if you guys are familiar. It's like a ballet bar inspired exercise because when I'm in that, I can really focus on the muscle and kind of pay attention, and they have the lights kind of dim, so although the music's pretty loud, but I can go to a really cool space. Whereas blood type O's, you can do the mini every year. You can do a couple a year if you want. But granted, we still have to build up to that, but blood type O's, they do better with more vigorous types of exercise. So we have to have appropriate exercise because exercise itself is a stressor, and we have to recognize our body and what our body needs, and that's important. Restorative sleep. So we talked about the 10 minutes before sleep. It's a great 10 minutes to get some restorative sleep. But from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., this is when your body creates and releases optimal levels of human growth hormone. Your liver does this. And human growth hormone, what do we need that for? Human growth hormone tells your body to repair the damage from the day before. So who doesn't want that? So when we can get to bed, now let's say we're getting to bed at midnight. Now I'm gonna give some kudos to my husband here. He's a very early morning riser, and I wasn't so much. We've been married, it'll be 30 years in just a couple weeks. Yeah. Yeah, he's tolerated me, and it's been, thank you, Jesus. So the fact that he's been an early morning riser has really helped me because I've been able to shift my clock, although, truth be told, the alarm goes off, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to get out of bed. And then, my little fluffy dog is right there. I'm going to release some calming hormones. I'm going to pet her. And then I'm like, all right, I need to go to the kitchen and get some coffee. And then I do. So the fact that he's been an early morning riser has really helped me. And then consequently, I go to bed earlier. And I have more energy on that clock. Going to bed earlier, early to rise, early to bed and early to rise. And it makes a big difference. So if you can, and some people can't because of their jobs, but a lot of people can make an adjustment there. It's just we're on our devices, we're doing whatever, and we need to, or work in that direction. Because one of the things, our body is very forgiving. We don't have to do things overnight. Be kind to yourself. And we don't want to beat ourselves up. Oh my gosh, I'm such a loser. I'm supposed to go to bed at 10, and it's midnight, and here I'm still up doing the laundry and the dishes or whatever. That's the stress hormones. That's not being kind to yourself. It's just one step at a time and doing things that kind of make sense. Prayer, meditation, spiritual friendships, and church attendance. And this is where I'd mention that Christians just do better when I work with them because we know our divine physician. And we're in community. We're in community where we love him together and we spend time with him. And that creates a favorable environment for the adrenal glands. All right, so stages of healing. This is a big deal. So, and I have this laid out in my book in more depth, which we can talk about in a little bit. The stages of healing. So, this is from Kubler-Ross, the stages in death and dying, the first stages of healing, and I have a couple more. So, the first stage of healing is denial. And denial, we will live in that space, and it's like, there's not a problem, I'm good. And there's like a huge big elephant in the room, right? And a lot of times it's just a coping mechanism. So I think it's important for us to understand where we are on our journey. And if someone, maybe in this sphere here, maybe they're in denial because they can't look at their pain. And they need a loving friend, maybe spiritual friendship, to be able to look at that and maybe look at it together. But in denial, we're stuck. And I know a lot of people that live in denial because it can feel safe. And quite often, the folks that live in denial, they've experienced a lot of wounds, a lot of emotional wounds, and they don't know how to process that. And they don't know how to get out of it. And it's not uncommon then to kind of abuse your body if you're in denial. Because we can't bury wounds forever without some type of an outlet. The steam has got to come out. And sometimes it's in, poor lifestyle habits. Because, I feel really good and I eat this chocolate cake, which I totally understand that. So we want to understand that when we're in denial, we're there, it's because we can't look at the pain. And then the next step up from denial is anger. And it can also be anxiety and also be shame, but it's anger. So in anger, it's like, oh yeah, there's a problem. Oh yeah, he's it, she's it, those Christians are it, Jesus is it, the medical establishment's it, someone is causing all my pain. And we do that, right? We do, because it's hard to look at our part in it, even if we weren't the perpetrator, even if we were the victim, because God always has healing. Jesus wasn't up on the cross dying, pointing fingers. And so he was asking, Father, please forgive them. So we have within us that same ability through Jesus Christ. Amen? Amen. So at anger, the next step up, let's say we're trying to heal, we're trying to forgive, we're good Christians, and we're doing our work, and we're trying to understand why they, them are the way they are. So we move up in a bargain. And bargain is like, okay, if he would stop leaving his dirty socks on the ground, I could be okay. And so what happens when we do that? It's like we're not angry, but we're like, So we're putting our potential for happiness and peace outside of ourselves. So if they do it different, then I'm good. Well, could we wait our whole life for that? We could wait our whole life for them to change, and they may never change. There's no promise that they will, because that's between them and God, whatever they've got going on. And so then the next step up from bargain is depression. And we tend to think in the modern world as depression is something really heavy and really hard and very painful. And I'll share with you that depression is an Achilles heel for me. When things get really bad, I go there, and I've been there, and I understand it. And I've got a story, like we all have a story of wounds, and it's like a go-to for me. The stronger I become in my faith, the stronger I become in my love for the Lord and sharing that love with others. When the hard time hits, it's more like an acute situation. I might be in the thralls of depression or cry, and then, I'm okay. Whereas before it was different. So in depression, it's like we're looking around and they're not going to change. They're never going to do what I think I need, and I'm never going to get my bargain that I was hoping was going to bring me happiness. And so what does Scripture tell us about the brokenhearted? Where's God? He's close. He is close to the brokenhearted. Because when we're in depression, he is so close to us. And he's close to us. He dwells within. We're humans. We're limited in our ability to perceive, right? We have this infinite God and infinite love that's so big. So we can't understand how he's within and how he's without and everything. But he is close to us when we're brokenhearted. Which brings us to the next phase. Once we process through our depression, we can get to acceptance. And acceptance is significant because the bottom four, and I don't say bottom as in bad, it's just you have to kind of orientate it somewhere. But it's just like, where are we in our journey, in our healing journey? So we've got denial, anger, bargain, and depression. Those four, most people tend to circulate and move around in that space. But when we bump up to acceptance, where we're like, really, it's okay, versus denial, which it's okay. See, denial and acceptance can look the same on the outside, but on the inside, we know, because at acceptance, at that point, we've released the need for the other to do it differently. And so what does that do? It takes the edge off. And it opens up a space for love to come in, for us to be able to love the other more, pray for them, forgive them. And that's love entering in. And the final stage is just love consuming. There's so much love. And it's like they're in their sphere and they're hurting. And they say things that are mean. They do things. And you're like, I'm praying for them because I love them. And it doesn't mean that we're a victim. It doesn't mean that we're a doormat. But it means that we have surrendered ourselves to love for the other. And that is what we're called to do as brothers and sisters in Christ, as one body moving together and healing together. So that's the end of the adrenal talk. And so
Thank you for watching my video. I hope you found the content helpful, and if you did, make sure you click on the subscribe button or give me a like. I'd really appreciate it. And if you have any thoughts or questions or things you'd like me to discuss in future videos, leave those in the comments below. In the meantime, live healthy, happy, and holy, and keep transforming until we meet again.